Hey guys, welcome to my channel where I talk about all things mindset and weightlifting. I am in the beautiful Texas and I just moved back last week. So if you've been following my videos for some time, you would have probably have seen I was living in Romania and then I moved to New Zealand. I was there for a year and a half and now I finally moved back to Austin, Texas, where I'm hoping to be here permanently. But to get back to the topic of what we are going to be talking about today is the push press versus the power jerk. Now, I want to talk about the main differences between the two and where they fit into your program. Now, let's talk a bit about what is the push press. Now, if you look at the video, you will be able to see that the push press is very much a strength building movement, but it's also a movement to teach a beginner athlete the progression before they get to their split jerks. Now, what are the most important points when it comes to the push press? Now, first and foremost, you will either take the barbell from the rack or you will clean the barbell up, but either or, the bar should be in the front rack position. Now, if you're not sure where your jerk grip is yet, so maybe you're a beginner athlete and you're learning the basic movement, you want to make sure the rule of thumb is always you want to take just wider than shoulder width apart, depending on your mobility, depending on your arm length. So there's a whole bunch of factors that will determine exactly where you grip, but like I said, rule of thumb, just wider than shoulder width. With a clean, your elbows will be quite high because you want to make sure that your thoracic is nice and tight, your core is nice and tight, and the bar is not going to slip off. So you always have your elbows as high as possible onto the shoulders when you do your clean. Before we get into the push press, we want to lower the elbows slightly, because when we lower the elbows slightly, you'll see from the side, you'll have more of a driving force when you push the barbell up than if your arms had to be here and you push the arm up. So basically it just has to do with line and getting from point A to point B. Easier is now the bar's in the front rack position, you're doing a dip and drive. When you do that dip and drive, I like cueing deep breath or big chest, just depending on the athlete and what cue works with them. When you cue obviously deep breath or big chest, what they will do automatically is they will make sure the core is nice and tight and the chest and the trunk is nice and upright. Now, with a dip and drive, it's not going to be a partial squat. It's literally just a dip down, drive up, very short movement, like a spring. You kind of just want to like build up that spring and then you want to drive the barbell up. Now, athletes also always ask, should I go into my toes? Should I stay flat-footed? And the answer to this is, yes, you can extend onto your toes or onto the balls of your feet slightly, but you don't want to hover in that area or in that movement. You don't want to stay on your toes because then obviously the movement becomes slower and its timing is out and your balance is out. And to get the most out of the movement, you just want to go probably slightly onto the balls of your feet and drive the barbell up and make sure the feet is flat as soon as possible. The dip to the drive up and in that locked out position. So the only way you are going to get there is if you use all of your muscles, your timing is correctly. So the best thing to always do is do this technique with just an empty bar, master it, and then you start adding weight. Because if you start adding weight too soon and you just want to push press heavy, you are not going to be able to get the most out of the exercise. Now, the other thing that's super important is when you push the barbell up, especially if you're a weightlifter, you want to make sure that the bar is either behind the head or just basically in line with the ears. But obviously the more forward the bar is, or if you drive the barbell forward with your arms, you do not have enough strength in that position. Center of gravity will just pull that weight down. You'll miss it. So the main thing here is to make sure that you drive the bar slightly back and get that locked out position so that you are in the strongest position possible to have that weight overhead. Now, let's talk about the power jerk. Now, with the power jerk, you will have the same concept. The bar will be in the front rack position. You'll slightly turn your elbows down so that we can get the most out of the movement. Now, the power jerk is exactly what the name says. It's a power movement. So exactly like the push press, you are going to dip and drive. Now, where the difference comes in, you will dip and drive up. You'll basically get slightly airborne. Some athletes might get airborne. Some athletes might just slide the feet out or slightly jump out with the feet. But the main thing is here, you will slightly jump out with the feet or move your feet outwards, just depending on how you do your power jerk. And you will land in a rebended position. So you will go dip and drive, and like you'll see in the video, I land with my knee slightly bent in the power position, and that's how I catch the power jerk. So that is the main differences when it comes to the push press versus the power jerk. Now, where does the push press and the power jerk fit into your program? Again, depending on your level, so if you are a beginner level athlete, you will use the push press either for a strength building movement, or you can use it as progression, again, to teach you how to move properly before you get to the split jerk. Now, exactly the same thing with the power jerk. The power jerk is normally the next step after you've learned how to push press. You will then learn how to power jerk, and then after that, you will learn how to split jerk. So that's if you are a beginner level athlete. When you are an intermediate and advanced, you will use these movements for power and for strength, and they will also not always be on the same day. You will often find that you might have one day where you will do the classical lifts, and then the next day after you've done heavy classical lifts, you might do some light powers, which could include like your power snatches, power cleans, power jerks, and then you will also see that even in your days that you do go heavier, so your classical lift day, you might actually even do the push press on those days. But again, it just depends on your program, it depends on your training cycle, but depending on, again, your level, they will fit into your program in different ways, and they will either be assistant exercises to get you stronger and to work on power, or they will be progressive exercises, basically to teach you how to move from the point A, which is the barbell on the front rack position, to point B, overhead with the barbell with the locked out arms. So depending on your goal, they both have benefits, just depending on where you put them in your program and how you want to use them. But I do approve of both of these movements being in your program. Now, I want to tell you something super interesting, and this is where I kind of geek out in weightlifting, and this was one research article that I recently read, which was very interesting for me, as in the 1950s, so I think it was around 1952 to 1972, I might be a little bit out with the dates, but during that era, people actually used to train the press and the press assistant exercises, so like the push press, power jerk, etc., a whole lot more than their actual classical lifts, their strength movements like their pulls and even their squats. Out of the whole program, the movements that they trained the most, and it took about 30-something% in their actual program, was the press and the press variations and the press assistant exercises. Now, the reason why they did this, now this was when the press was still part of the competition movement. So you obviously have your snatch, your clean and jerk, and then they had the press. Now, if an athlete wasn't as good in the snatch or the clean and jerk, the way they can get their total higher and then potentially place higher in competition was to actually press a lot heavier. So if they weren't as good in the snatch and clean and jerk, they knew they can gain an edge by having a stronger press. So that was super interesting. Like I said, this is where I geek out with weightlifting. I love hearing about, where weightlifting came from, how it developed, and how it's grown over the years to where it is now, because now you don't do as much as that. And also the press is not part of the Olympic lifting movements in competition, whereas now it's the snatch, and the clean and jerk. Now guys, if you found this video helpful, and I would also like to know in the comments below which of these movements are your favorite, or which one you're struggling with and you know that you need to potentially train more of it. Comment below, let me know. Also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, ring that notification bell, and quickly before we sign off, I just want to remind you that I have subscription weightlifting programming that is in the link below in the description, that you can sign up for either 3-day a week or 5-day a week, weightlifting programming as well as a beginner weightlifting program. And on top of that, I also have a weightlifting mastery course. So if you want to learn the Olympic lifting movements and you want to learn how they fit into your program and how to move, you can either be a coach or an athlete, maybe a beginner level athlete, or you're a coach who wants to now teach an athlete the Olympic lifts, you can go and sign up for my weightlifting mastery course, which comes with a free weightlifting program as well. That is all in the link in the description. And again, guys, thank you for joining. I will see you in the next one.